Every morning when you open your eyes, before the world makes its demands, you face a simple but important truth. You have two options. You can rise with purpose, or you can drift into the day on autopilot. These choices may appear small, but over time they separate those who live with meaning from those who merely go through the motions. Let's look at 7 key points that show how these two decisions shape our lives. Each day begins with a decision so subtle most people hardly notice it. The alarm rings, sunlight filters through the window, and before a word is spoken, before the day even starts, there is already a battle. The choice between comfort and growth. It doesn't come with attention or celebration. It arrives quietly, hidden in the softness of the bed, the weight of the blanket, and the thought of just a few more minutes of rest. Comfort whispers that you've earned it, that yesterday was tough, and today can wait. Growth speaks differently. Its voice is firm, sometimes uncomfortable. It calls us toward effort, discipline, and the unknown. And the truth is, the voice we choose in that moment determines more than whether we're on time for work or school. It shapes who we are becoming. Comfort is tempting because it feels good right now. It demands nothing and gives temporary ease. But the cost is hidden. The more we choose it, the more we remain in the same place unchanged, stagnant, safe but unfulfilled. Growth asks us to embrace discomfort, to stretch ourselves, to do what others avoid. It may not feel good in the moment, but its rewards are lasting. Growth doesn't just move us forward. It transforms us into people capable of far more than we imagined. Take the example of Michael Jordan. His story has been told many times, but it never loses impact. Jordan wasn't only gifted. Talent alone never makes someone great. What set him apart was his daily choice to value growth over comfort. While most were still sleeping, he was already on the court, sweating, practicing shots he had made thousands of times before. It wasn't glamorous. No cameras, no applause, just a man choosing discipline while others chose ease. And because of those choices, repeated day after day, he isn't remembered simply as a basketball player, but as a legend. But this lesson is bigger than sports. It applies to life. We all have our own arenas to step into. For some, it's the desk where the manuscript waits. For others, it's the classroom where learning must be pursued, or the workplace where high standards are required. Each space asks the same question: will we settle for what is easy, or will we reach for what is possible? Those who accomplish extraordinary things are not free from the pull of comfort. They feel it like everyone else. The difference is they don't let it rule their lives. They know temporary ease can never compare to lasting fulfillment. Comfort may keep us warm, but growth gives us strength. And often, the decision isn't about big achievements. Sometimes it's much smaller. It's the parent who comes home tired, but still chooses to sit with their child and listen. It's the student who reviews one more chapter instead of scrolling endlessly online. It's the professional who takes on a difficult assignment instead of playing safe. In those moments, there are no medals, no applause. But those small choices build up. Over time, they create character, confidence, and credibility. There's a story about a man who began running every morning. At first, he disliked it. The first week was painful. The second was even worse. His legs hurt, his lungs burned, and every part of him wanted to stop. But he kept going. A few weeks later, something changed. His body adjusted. His stamina improved. More importantly, he saw himself differently. He was no longer someone who avoided challenges. He was someone who faced them. That shift wasn't just about running, it was about identity. Choosing growth had changed not only what he did, but who he believed himself to be. That is the true power of choosing growth over comfort. It doesn't only bring results, it reshapes who we are. Every time we push through resistance, we send ourselves a message: I am capable. I am resilient. I am someone who does not settle. And over time, that belief fuels even greater action. The challenge is that comfort never goes away. It is always there, waiting for us. The temptation to choose it doesn't fade just because we've chosen growth before. In fact, the more success we find, the louder comfort's voice becomes. It tells us we've done enough. We've earned a rest. We can take it easy now. But history makes one thing clear: those who stop growing eventually decline. Companies that rely only on past success fail. Leaders who stop learning lose their influence. People who stop challenging themselves become smaller versions of who they once were. Growth is not a single decision. It is a daily choice. It is waking each morning and asking, who do I want to be today, the version that settles, or the version that strives? And the truth is, no one else can make that choice for us. Not parents, not teachers, not bosses, not friends. We alone decide whether to step into growth or fall back into comfort. That is what makes it powerful. Because every morning, in the quiet moments before the day begins, we hold the ability to shape our future. If you want to know what your life will look like in 5 years, look at the choices you're making each morning. Are you choosing the easier path, or are you choosing the path that stretches you? Because what feels difficult today will one day become your strength, and what feels safe today may one day become your regret. The choice between comfort and growth is really the choice between a life remembered and a life forgotten. One leaves no mark, the other leaves a legacy. And the truth is, we don't have to be Michael Jordan to choose growth. We don't need to be famous, gifted, or extraordinary. We simply need to decide, in the ordinary moments of life, that growth matters more than ease. Every morning the battle begins again, and every morning we have the chance to win it, not by defeating others, but by overcoming the part of ourselves that clings to comfort. And when we do, when we consistently choose growth, we discover something important. Greatness is not reserved for a select few. It is available to anyone willing to endure the discomfort growth demands. The world does not remember those who stayed comfortable. It remembers those who grew. Every morning when we wake, we face a choice. Though most people overlook it, the moment our eyes open, the world begins pulling at us. Notifications, emails, and endless streams of information wait to claim our attention. And without realizing it, many of us slip into reaction. We reach for the phone before we even rise from bed. We allow the outside world to decide how we feel, what we think, and how we begin to act. By doing this, we hand over control of our day before it even begins. But there is another way, one far more powerful. It is the choice to rise with intention, to pause long enough to decide who we want to be, before the world tells us who to become. Reaction is easy. It's instinctive. It doesn't require discipline or planning. When you react, you simply respond to whatever appears in front of you. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and you respond with anger. An email lands in your inbox, and suddenly your priorities change. A headline flashes across the screen, and fear enters your mind. In those moments, you're not leading, you're being led. Living this way may feel normal, but it keeps you trapped in a cycle of disorder. Intention, on the other hand, is deliberate. It is the calm but firm act of choosing your own direction before the noise of the world decides for you. Intention is what turns ordinary mornings into moments of clarity and strength. Imagine a leader who begins the day writing in a journal. They are not avoiding responsibility, they are preparing to meet it with focus. Or someone who meditates before work, not because they have fewer demands, but because they know their demands require a steady mind. These people understand that their first moments shape everything that follows. When we begin with intention, we give ourselves focus. We shift from living on autopilot to living with purpose. Instead of letting life push us around, we begin to push back. The difference, small at first, grows over time. Someone who reacts each morning may get through the day, but someone who begins with intention builds a life, because one day at a time. They are shaping their identity, their choices, and ultimately their future. Think about it. When was the last time you woke up and asked yourself, who do I want to be today? Not what tasks need to be done, not what obligations are waiting, but who you want to be. Most of us skip this question, yet it may be the most important one we can ask. Because when we start here, our actions take on new meaning. If you choose to be patient, your interactions shift. If you choose to be courageous, challenges look less like threats and more like opportunities. Intention changes behavior in a way reaction never can. There's an old saying, you cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. Reaction is letting the wind push you wherever it wants. Intention is setting your sails before leaving the shore. One path leaves you scattered and drained. The other gives you direction, even through storms. And the truth is, the world will not slow down for us. Emails will keep coming. News will not become quieter. Demands will not disappear. If we wait for stillness to appear on its own, we'll wait forever. The only stillness we can depend on is the one we create. Intention is that stillness. It is the pause between waking up and diving into the noise. It is claiming a few moments as your own before giving yourself to the world. We see the difference in leaders, parents, creators, and everyday people. Picture a parent who begins the day reacting, rushing, snapping at their kids because time feels short. Now picture a parent who wakes a little earlier, takes a breath, and sets the intention to show patience. Both face the same pressures, but the outcomes are very different. Or think of a leader who begins their morning buried in emails. They start already overwhelmed. Compare that with a leader who begins by writing down their 3 most important tasks, aligning their focus before the demands arrive. The first one is trapped in reaction. The second leads with intention. Even research supports this. Studies show that people who begin their day with practices like gratitude, planning, or visualization report lower stress and higher productivity. Not because life is easier for them, but because they shape their experience before it shapes them. They decide how to show up instead of leaving it to chance. The real challenge is not knowing what to do, but committing to it. Reaction is tempting. The phone is nearby. The notifications keep buzzing. The world feels urgent. But urgency is not the same as importance. Urgency grabs attention. Importance requires us to pause and recognize it. And the only way to see that difference is to begin with intention. If we are honest, most of us do not live in alignment with what we claim to value. We say relationships matter, yet we give more attention to screens than to people. We say growth matters, yet we start each day repeating the same reactive patterns. Intention bridges the gap between what we say we value and how we actually live. This is not about perfection, it is about direction. We will not always get it right. Some days we fall back into reaction, and the noise of the world takes over before we find our balance. But the goal is not perfection. The goal is practice. Every time we choose intention over reaction, we strengthen a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows with use. So next time you wake up, before checking your phone or letting the world in, pause and ask, how do I want to show up today? Who do I want to be? What matters most? Then let those answers guide your first actions. In that moment, you stop reacting, you begin leading. You live with clarity. You build a life, not just survive a day. The choice between reaction and intention may feel small in the morning, but it is the difference between chaos and focus, between drifting without direction and shaping your world yourself. And every morning, that choice belongs to you. Each morning when we wake, fear is often the first voice we hear. It whispers that we should stay small, hold back, avoid risk. It says, what if you fail? What if you embarrass yourself? What if others see through you? Fear is relentless. It doesn't wait for us to be ready. It arrives uninvited, pressing against our confidence before the day even begins. But here is the truth. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to act despite it. It is the decision to rise, to move forward, to step ahead even when fear insists we stand still. The difference between fear and courage is not about how loud doubt is, but about which voice we choose to follow. History reminds us that the people we admire most were not fearless. They were human. They doubted. They questioned. Yet they still chose courage. That is what makes their stories matter. Rosa Parks was not without fear. She knew the risks when she refused to give up her seat. She understood the danger. But in that moment, her courage outweighed her fear, and her decision sparked a movement that reshaped a nation. Fear exists to protect us. It keeps us from fire, from cliffs, from real danger. But fear can also deceive. It exaggerates threats, making us believe rejection will break us, failure will define us, and setbacks are permanent. Courage counters that lie. It helps us see fear for what it truly is: evidence that we stand on the edge of growth, proof that something meaningful is ahead. Every person who achieved something remarkable stood at that edge. They felt the racing heart, the shaky hands, the unsteady voice. Fear was there, but so was the chance to choose courage. The greatness we admire is not built on fearlessness, but on the daily choice of courage. The danger of letting fear lead is that it shrinks our world. It convinces us to stay safe, avoid risk, remain in the familiar. Over time, that safety becomes a prison. We stop applying for jobs we want because we fear rejection. We stay silent in meetings because we fear judgment. We avoid sharing how we feel because we fear heartbreak. Those walls may protect us from pain, but they also block us from possibility. Courage is the tool that breaks those walls down. Countless dreams have died not because people lacked ability, but because fear stopped them before they began. A book left unwritten out of fear of criticism. A business never started because of fear of failure. A love never expressed because of fear of rejection. Fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. Failure teaches. Failure strengthens. Failure builds resilience. Fear paralyzes, and that paralysis steals the chance to even try. Courage, on the other hand, expands our world. It says, yes, you might fail, but you might succeed too. Yes, people may judge, but they may also be inspired. Courage doesn't promise victory, but it guarantees growth. And growth is what makes life meaningful. When we choose courage, we open ourselves to discovery, to possibility, to becoming more than we were yesterday. Think about the leaders and innovators we celebrate. Martin Luther King Jr. stood before crowds with only a dream, not a guarantee. Amelia Earhart flew into the unknown without certainty she would return. Nelson Mandela walked out of prison with no assurance of what came next. None of them were free of fear, but each chose courage, and the world changed because of it. Courage is not always bold or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet. It looks like raising your hand and saying, I don't know. It looks like admitting a mistake. It looks like sending an email you've avoided, starting a conversation you've postponed, or getting out of bed when every part of you wants to quit. These acts may appear small, but they are courage all the same. Over time, small acts compound into lives of impact. The beauty of courage is that it spreads. One person's choice to face fear gives others permission to do the same. Rosa Parks' courage inspired thousands. A soldier's bravery lifts an entire unit. A single voice in a meeting can shift the direction of a company. Courage begins with one choice, one moment, one step forward. We are not defined by the fear we feel, but by how we respond to it. Some mornings, courage looks like chasing a dream. Other mornings, it looks like simply showing up. Some days it means standing alone. Other days it means asking for help. What matters is not that we remove fear, but that we refuse to let fear remove us. The question is never whether fear will appear, it always will. The question is, what will we choose when it does? Will we let it define the limits of our lives, or will we choose courage and step into the unknown? One path leads to regret, the other to growth. One keeps us small, the other expands our potential. One silences us, the other amplifies us. The choice between fear and courage is made in the ordinary. Quiet moments when no one is watching, when the stakes feel small, when it seems like no one will notice. But those are the moments that shape us, because courage, like a muscle, grows through use. Every time we choose courage over fear, we strengthen our ability to do it again. What once felt impossible eventually becomes natural. So tomorrow morning, when fear greets you, recognize it for what it is, a signal that something important lies ahead. Take a breath, acknowledge it, then choose courage anyway. Because one choice, one step, one action has the power to change not only your life, but the lives of many others. History shows us again and again the world moves forward because people felt the fear, but chose courage anyway. Excuses are tempting. They shield us from failure, from accountability, from admitting we could have done more. They let us point outward instead of looking inward. And for a moment, excuses feel like relief. Relief from responsibility, relief from guilt, relief from change. But that comfort comes with a cost. Every excuse we make is a small surrender of power. Every time we blame traffic, the boss, the economy, or fate, we hand over the pen that writes our story. Slowly, we become bystanders in our own lives. Responsibility, however, asks us to face the mirror and accept that we are not only shaped by circumstances, but also by our choices. It can be difficult to admit that our actions brought us here, but it is also freeing, because if our choices got us here, new choices can take us somewhere better. Responsibility doesn't confine us, it frees us. It reminds us that while we can't control every event, we can always control our response. And in that response lies our power. Think about two people facing the same challenge. Both wake up late and arrive at work after the meeting has started. One says, "The traffic was awful, nothing I could do." The other says, "I should have left earlier. I should have prepared for the possibility." One person clings to excuses and stays blind to growth. The other accepts responsibility and gains wisdom. Only one learns. Only one avoids repeating the same mistake tomorrow. That small difference compounds over time until their lives look nothing alike. When we choose excuses, we choose stagnation. We become victims of life's unpredictability. We say, "The economy is why I can't succeed. My boss is why I'm not promoted. Luck is why I'm not thriving." Each time we say, "It's not my fault," we silently declare, "I am powerless." The more we repeat that story, the more it feels true. Responsibility, however, is not about guilt. It is not about punishing ourselves for failures. It is about ownership. It means saying, "This happened on my watch. What can I learn? What can I do differently next time?" Responsibility hands the steering wheel back to us. It gives us permission to adapt, improve, and move forward. Think about the leaders we admire most. They are not the ones who deflect blame. They don't point at the market, the competition, or their team when things go wrong. They are the ones who step forward and say, "The responsibility is mine." Even when circumstances are beyond their control, they accept the weight because they know ownership is the only way to shape the future. Excuses destroy trust. Responsibility builds it. And trust is the foundation of every team, every relationship, every success. The same applies to our personal lives. Excuses weaken relationships. We say, "I was late because you didn't remind me," instead of admitting, "I lost track of time." We say, "I snapped because you provoked me," instead of, "I should have managed my emotions better." Excuses push responsibility onto others. Responsibility strengthens relationships by acknowledging the truth. Our choices, actions, and words are ours. Owning them shows respect. There is also a hidden strength in responsibility. It builds resilience. Life will always bring setbacks, pain, and disappointment. If excuses are our habit, every challenge feels final, like a wall we cannot move. But if responsibility is our habit, every challenge becomes a teacher. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" we ask, "What can I take from this?" That shift turns obstacles into stepping stones. Responsibility transforms pain into progress. Think of someone who achieved greatness despite overwhelming odds: a child born into poverty who became a leader, someone who overcame illness to run a marathon, or an entrepreneur who failed 3 times before finally succeeding. They didn't reach success by making excuses. They didn't say, "I can't because of where I come from," or "I won't because life isn't fair." They took ownership of what they could control, however small, and kept moving forward. Brick by brick, choice by choice, responsibility shaped who they became. It's tempting to believe excuses keep us safe. In truth, they trap us. They keep us small. They make us helpless characters instead of authors of our own story. Responsibility may feel heavier at first, but it makes us stronger. It gives us back the pen. It reminds us we are not passengers, we are drivers. Every day, life presents us with the same choice: excuses or responsibility. One path feels easier now but costs more later. The other feels harder now, but rewards us with long-term strength. One gives temporary comfort. The other gives lasting power. And this choice is not once for all time. It is daily, sometimes hourly, in how we explain a missed deadline, how we respond to failure, how we hold ourselves accountable in relationships, how we face our fears. Excuses keep us stuck in the past. They replay what went wrong and who is to blame. Responsibility points us toward the future. It says, "This happened, but I can shape what comes next." That is where progress lies, not in excuses, but in responsibility. So when tomorrow comes and life tests you, remember, responsibility is not a burden. It is a gift of freedom, growth, and agency. It is the decision to stop surrendering our power to the outside world and claim it for ourselves. It may demand more in the moment, but over time, it gives us something priceless: a life we are proud of, a story we authored, a legacy defined not by excuses, But by responsibility, life also presents another choice: consistency or convenience. Every single day, we are given the chance to decide. That decision, small as it seems, shapes the trajectory of our lives. Success, fulfillment, and progress don't arrive in sudden bursts. They are built through small, steady actions, repeated over time even when no one is watching. Convenience, on the other hand, offers shortcuts and quick fixes. It feels good in the moment, but it robs us of growth. Think about the habits shaping your life today. It's not the big events, but the small choices repeated daily. The person who exercises 3 times a week isn't stronger because of one workout, but because they showed up consistently, especially on the hard days. The student who masters a subject doesn't do it in one night of cramming, but through steady practice. Consistency builds what convenience never can. Research shows it takes around 66 days to form a habit. That means weeks of showing up with little visible reward before it becomes ingrained. Missing one day doesn't erase progress. The danger lies in letting that slip become the norm. Convenience whispers, skip the workout, watch another episode, do it tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes never. Convenience trades long-term potential for short-term ease. Consistency demands discipline, but it rewards with confidence, identity, and growth. Confidence is not built on talent alone, but on keeping promises to yourself until you trust you can follow through. History's greatest achievers, athletes, leaders, creators didn't succeed through one dramatic moment. Their success came from years of disciplined repetition. Michael Jordan became great not because of a single game-winning shot, but because of thousands of hours of practice. Beethoven didn't compose masterpieces from one flash of inspiration, but through decades of steady work. Their stories are not of convenience, but of consistency. The same applies to us. Imagine two paths, one of convenience, one of consistency. The convenient path feels smooth at first, but leads to regret and what-ifs. The consistent path is harder but leads to mastery, pride, and fulfillment. Every choice you make casts a vote for who you want to become. Do you want to be someone who breaks promises or someone who keeps them? Every choice builds that reputation with yourself and with others. Momentum comes from consistency, and momentum carries you even on the days when motivation fades. Convenience keeps you busy, tired, and overwhelmed. Consistency gives rhythm, reliability, and long-term peace. It may feel harder now, but it frees you later. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm rings, your choice is not just for today. It is a vote for the person you want to become. Will you choose convenience, or will you choose consistency, the path that builds a legacy? And every morning, there's another choice: gratitude or complaint. It may seem small, but the way you frame your day in the first moments shapes everything that follows. Two people can face the same circumstances, but one begins with gratitude and the other with complaint, and their days unfold in completely different ways. Gratitude shifts perspective. Complaint locks us in scarcity. Gratitude does not ignore pain or difficulty, it simply acknowledges what remains valuable. That is why even those in the hardest conditions, soldiers, survivors, leaders, practice gratitude. It fuels resilience when everything else feels lost. Complaints drain energy and reinforce the story that life is against us. Gratitude rewires the brain to see possibility, to notice what works, to fuel motivation and joy. Leaders who practice gratitude lift entire teams. Leaders who complain drain them. Gratitude is not weakness, it is strength. It builds trust, resilience, and connection. In relationships, gratitude deepens love. Complaints erode it. In work, gratitude inspires. Complaints demoralize. Gratitude requires intention, but it transforms ordinary life into extraordinary awareness. Life gives us these choices daily: excuses or responsibility, convenience or consistency, complaint or gratitude, fear or courage, existing or truly living. Each choice feels small in the moment, but thousands of small choices shape a lifetime. So tomorrow morning, when the day begins, remember this: you hold the power. You can choose comfort, excuses, complaint, and mere existence, or you can choose responsibility, consistency, gratitude, courage, and true living. One path keeps you small, the other shapes a legacy.